Welcome, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Unmanned Uncovered. This is your host, Stephen Glaus, drone subject matter expert consultant, content creator, and podcast producer for Consorting, a company built to help you discover a better way to do things with drones. With me on today's show is Nikhil Vadhavkar. Nikhil is the co-founder of Raptor Maps, the leading provider of life cycle management software for the solar industry. Nikhil Vadhavkar, welcome to the show. It's great to have you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here. I feel like this is so high energy. I feel like I got to start shouting at this podcast. So no, stoked to be here. Excited to talk solar, talk drones, and I think we're gonna have a great show.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. Well, before we get into the technical side of things, Nikhil, how's the start of the new year 2021 been faring for you thus far? Has it been better than 2020 or what's it looking like?
It's a complicated question, right? So we, first and foremost, we care deeply about our team and our customers. So we're aware of the grind that 2020 had on everyone and 2021. Definitely some of that carried over, but I think we're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel. So far so good there. On the software side of what we're doing and on the industry side, we're really excited. We're seeing a lot of tailwinds. We're seeing a lot of traction both for what we're doing, growth in the solar industry, and we've got great indications so far that 2021, both Raptor Maps, the UAS industry in general, and the solar industry are all going to knock it out of the park.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. Everybody I talk to, there's just a lot of, you can just see things building up and really bellowing and starting to build fruit, take notice. What would you say as you look around, Nikhil? What are some of the biggest changes you've been noticing around the industry thus far? Is there anything that's really been sticking out to you?
Yeah, so it's important to think about how the solar industry evolved. First, there's the fundamental physics of how solar modules and inverters and all of that equipment works, and as we've hit these economies of scale, that equipment has become more reliable, more accessible, and cheaper. But it used to be that every single solar farm, I might say PV. So for those of you, PV means photovoltaic. We say that in the solar industry to distinguish from things like concentrated solar, which are way more esoteric. So when you think of a solar panel, that's PV. And so, the industry evolved where every single project or solar farm used to be its own little special thing. And you would have just a ton of context and knowledge and parties coming together to build that one solar farm. But as the industry's evolved, solar has come down the cost curve. We're building them cheaper. We're building them bigger than before. There are more solar farms in a portfolio, a group of solar farms. And the biggest thing we've noticed is just that incredible need for scale. So our customers and solar professionals are sitting there being like, man, I've got 10, 20, 50 times the solar under my management than I used to. How the heck am I going to keep my head above water? And now every little, kilowatt hour matters, right? A fraction of that matters because you no longer have these insane margins in the solar industry. It's a real form of energy. It's standing on its own 2 feet, competing with everything else out there and, kicking butt.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Well, let's rewind the tape just a little bit, Nikhil. Can you tell us, how did Raptor Maps, how did your company come to existence? Can you tell us a little bit about your co-founder, Eddie Obropta, and how you two came up with this really cool concept?
Yeah, so Eddie was my lab mate at MIT in the aerospace department, or AeroAstros as we call it. Well, course 16 as we really call it for my MIT people out there. But our advisor actually she took a leave of absence to be the deputy administrator at NASA. And this is one of those, when the cat's away, the mice will play. So Eddie and I, our minds started wandering, and I had a lot of experience in the UAS sector. I led a grant from the Gates Foundation to build drones and protocols for, last mile medicine delivery. And Eddie was working on software for really complicated stuff for, the Navy and for NASA. And so we saw this intersection of, okay, drones is no secret. They're taking off. They're going to do all kinds of incredible things. You've got a really deep backlog of episodes for those of you to listen to here if you're not convinced of that. But it's also all about the data models. What are you collecting? How are you actually having an impact in that specific industry? And so we ended up moving to the West Coast for a few months to enter what's called Y Combinator. So this is one of these premier incubators, Airbnb, DoorDash, Instacart, Dropbox, they all came out of YC. And so we like to think of ourselves as East Coast meets West Coast, which is perfect because I grew up in the Midwest in Michigan. So what I mean by that is East Coast is very much, very practical, engineering driven, one foot in front of the other. And West Coast is, how do we dream big? How do we 10X and how do we do it with software? And so you will not believe, putting all of that together, the thing we came up with was actually we were going to optimize the potato industry. So believe it or not, what we were doing was we were building, digital models or digital twins of potato fields, everything from, the blue potatoes for JetBlue chips are going to go here, and the classic potatoes for like McDonald's fries are going here.
That's great.
But what ended up happening was in the off season when it's winter, we had built these data models. We had built all kinds of software to take in, drone data, particularly thermal drone data, and map it to the data models to optimize, how much fertilizer and all kinds of stuff you're putting down. And we started getting emails and phone calls from solar industry professionals. But this wasn't like the innovation teams of large utilities or anything like that. These were grassroots, like people on the ground, solar technicians saying, hey, I just bought a UAS with a radiometric thermal payload. I'm seeing things I've never seen before. I know there's something here that's going to make my life easier, that's going to enable us to scale. I just don't have the software to do it. I don't have the protocols to do it. I know you guys are working in, this other industry, but I actually think you have a lot to contribute here.
That's really cool.
And so that was our first foray, into solar. And the more we peeled back, well, I guess in the agriculture analogy, the onion, the more we realized how much of an impact and an immediate impact we could have in solar.
That's so cool. So what exactly does Raptor Maps do then, Nikhil? How do drones maximize solar energy efficiencies?
Yeah, so as you said in the beginning, right, we provide lifecycle management software to enable this solar industry to scale. But the way we do that is that, we'll create this digital geospatial model. So we know, here's where every solar panel is in the world. Here's where it's linked up. Here's the address, both, electrically as well as, literally. But then what drones enable us to do are capture data both with high resolution color as well as long wave infrared. And by combining those two, we can actually see very minute or very major things that are impacting the production of the solar farm. And production equals money, right? The more power you produce, the more money you produce. And so that's really where we started. But then as we continued to scale, we realized that, this was a playbook that we could run during the construction process. This was the playbook that we could run during the design process. And it turned out that drones were a huge key to unlocking these required data products across the solar life cycle, from design all the way through asset transfer.
That's really interesting. Well, as you're actually when you actually do the inspections via drones and you're gathering that imagery, what are some of the unique hurdles that you face when getting that imagery and data, especially on solar farms?
Yeah. So first of all, it's the old adage of, what do you want it faster for accurate? It's got to be both. A great example is we'll have customers that have, damage from golf ball sized hail and they're trying to file a claim. And one of the biggest challenges is, how do we turn that around within a week?
Wow. Yeah.
Same thing if you're for mergers and acquisitions. If you're trying to buy a portfolio of 20 or 40 or 100 solar farms, you've only got a few weeks to put in your bid. And so the more information you can get sooner, that's going to enable you to put in a better bid to acquire those assets. So there's just the speed at which this needs to happen. They're practical considerations, right? So we've got a really comprehensive guide on our website. It's openly available on all of these, but you got to have a certain amount of sunshine. These environments can be pretty remote. So there are considerations there. And people think that solar farms are, it's just this static asset. It's just sitting there. What's it doing? It's generating electric. Well, a lot of them, especially the big ones, they're actually moving. So the solar panels are moving with the sun, and that actually changes throughout the day. You got to make sure you're staying on top of that. And then I think the final kind of big unique hurdle or one to highlight here is, the files, like how we take the data and the how we process it, it's got to be perfectly compatible with the way the industry works today. Because at the end of the day, let's say we create a CAD file for a rooftop because you're trying to create the model for how much that it's going to produce.
Yeah.
You can't just load a point cloud into PVSys or one of these other modeling platforms. It's got to be solar specific. So that's a huge challenge, and it's one that when you're a solar company, you're easily chew up and spit out.
Yeah. Well, not only guys are you a solar company, but you're also a global company. And I can imagine with COVID-19, I'm just going to ask, like, how did that affect and impact your company's ability to continue offering services worldwide?
Yeah. So at first, I mean, like every industry, right? It was just a shock to the system.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, we got to pull, like, what is going on? How's COVID going to affect everything? With solar, almost all of what we're doing fell under you're kind of out there, even when our customers are out there capturing data, or our partners are out there capturing data with drones. It's fairly remote, so the kind of interaction there isn't high risk, and it also fell under a certain number of exemptions for critical infrastructure. The only thing that I would say was really impacted then going forward was the supply chain for the solar industry, because you got to feed the beast. It's growing so quickly that if you have supply chain disruptions, that does push back, the ability to build solar farms. But after that initial kind of impact, we actually saw that what we were able to offer fit really well with what was going on in the world, which is how do you leverage really high quality local data providers, both within a state or within a certain country, without moving people around. And all of that data, doesn't matter whether you captured it in Florida, doesn't matter whether it's in Germany, South Africa, it all was taken to the same spec. And so for our customers, it's like being there without being there. They got this total visibility.
That's cool.
And with COVID, we're still seeing there's a huge benefit to be able to provide that type of service.
Yeah, that's great. And Nikhil, what about the balance of trying to mitigate the challenges and risks associated with making sure that the pilots that are actually flying these missions in different countries are holding to the standard that you guys expect, and the language barriers associated with that?
Yeah, so one of the things we do is, in utilizing local providers, that really helps with not just the language barriers, but the regulatory barriers, because they already hold all of the operating certificates and most importantly, the experience to be able to work in that space. So I think that's one way. But in terms of the data, we've found that just being a software company, we are very open about what does good data look like? What does bad data look like? What is the protocol? And actually, Eddie, my co-founder, he's become kind of a minor celebrity in the space, because he's always putting out YouTube videos. He's always posting on, Facebook groups, and, we're highly vested in making sure that people do this professionally, because that helps everybody.
Yeah, I think what's really cool is you can literally go onto your website and see almost step-by-step video instructions on how to do a solar. It's pretty amazing.
if you have a M200 or M300 in the thermal camera and you can't fly a solar farm, we haven't done our job.
That's right. That's so awesome.
Get the data that's most important to you and your organization with unmanned data services from Consortic. From utility inspections to construction project surveys, our remote pilots will utilize the latest drone technology to give you the most precise and accurate information safely, quickly, and within your budget. Let us do the work for you. Schedule a consultation now at consortic.com.
Well, you touched on this a little bit in the beginning of this conversation, but what is the current state of the solar market? I mean, there was just so much hype about solar technology, especially when you look back like 10 years ago. What's been happening in the background ever since?
I always think of it as, if you ever go to like a baseball game or a hockey game, you've got, certain sections are cheering for the three different, avatars that are in a race. And so for solar, those three different things are utility scale. So these are your really big solar farms. Your commercial and industrial, so this would be a like an Amazon data center rooftop or something like that, and then residential, right, which is homes. And they are all growing like crazy, 20, 30, 40% year over year. So which one of those grows the most can vary depending on the year, but in general the entire solar industry, the future is growth. And so that's one of the biggest challenges now that people are looking at is literally grid stability. It's, we know we're going to put so much solar on the grid. Is the grid going to be able to handle that? But that is a really good problem to have, because in the past, it was negligible, and that will no longer be the case going forward.
I'm just curious, what's the biggest difference between solar technology today and the solar panels you would look at 10 years ago? Are they still one and the same? Or is that technology, I might assume with like everything else, is that advancing as the years go by?
Yeah, the technology is continuously advancing, but I think there has been a certain amount of, hey, this is fundamentally how we, convert
Right.
sunlight into electricity, and let's just optimize the crap out of it. So in that way, solar has really benefited. I think where you're seeing most of the innovation today, and certainly don't get me wrong, 20, 30, 40% gains are massive, but storage is the buzzword. Batteries is what it really is, right? So that's kind of the big innovation, is how do you make sure during the shoulder, dawn and dusk, and where you might have peak demand and not a lot of sunlight, can you still take advantage of solar and get the most out of it?
Yeah, that's great. Well, it really does sound like the future of the solar industry is looking really bright. I'll use that pun, but
all right, you used it, not me. I was
Okay.
thinking about it, but
all right, I just had to throw it in there. Oh boy, but how do drones play a part into that future?
Yes, so they are an incredibly valuable tool for capturing necessary and required data. I was speaking with industry professionals maybe 4 years ago, and they said, this is kind of a new thing. I want to stick with handheld testing. And now those same people have come back to Raptor Maps in the past couple of years and said, yeah, this is what we do. Like this is the industry standard. And so it's been interesting that even the people who were lagging a little bit have now fully come around to the benefits of this technology. So I think, in short, they play a huge part. That being said, it's all about how do you combine that drone data with all the other data, in-field sensors, historical data from solar farm construction and all of that. Combining that is going to be the most important thing to both manage and optimize these assets going forward.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. What about the incorporation of solar energy as maybe being a source of direct energy for drones? Like maybe you implant solar panels onto the wings, because as the industry continues to advance, that's sort of the Achilles heel of drone technology right now, is just the limited battery capacity and just the energy capacity of most drones. Do you foresee maybe the two, solar energy and drones, working in tandem together anytime soon?
Yes, but not in the way you think. And so what I mean by that is that, batteries are just so energy dense. And so for my aviation geeks listening in, right, that, and there's a reason these solar farms require a good amount of area, right? So this can work well for, you got gliders, they're sipping power, big wingspans, high altitude,
Right.
that can work pretty well. Now, where I see solar as potentially being a direct source of energy for drones is when you start to think about BV loss waivers and systems that are actually permanently or semi-permanently set up on site that can be powered and recharged from either the solar farm or the associated battery itself. And so that's where, we are fully prepared to support that type of future.
Right.
And I think that is something where we're going to start seeing, it's the power on site from the solar farm will be charging the batteries of drones. But I don't know if you're going to start seeing solar panels on drones inspecting solar farms anytime soon.
Who knows? We'll see what happens. Well, Nikhil, outside of the actual work that Raptor Maps is doing, a lot of cool, exciting stuff that's really innovative. What would you say really sets your company apart, differentiates yourself from other companies? Like, what's special about Raptor Maps?
Yeah, so we're fanatics about the solar industry. If you haven't picked that up, I don't know. I just didn't I didn't communicate my enthusiasm. So I think that's one thing, right? It's wherever it takes us, we're prepared to go. But the second thing is, just given our background, we're really, we're seeing that collaboration in the industry with a lot of different counterparties. You got the people that build, you got the people that manufacture the equipment, people that own and operate. What sets us apart is we really help our customers lean into that, but also quantify the benefits of that collaboration. So by, using these standardized data models, we're able to go to asset owners and say, look, like, we get it. You guys are going to get a high level overview and you can go as granular as you want. But at the end of the day, you know, in exchange for having that crazy amount of data, you know, you got to recognize that you can't go and fix every little thing because it's just not cost effective to do so. And you can't pick up the phone and call, you know, this maintenance company and, you know, put an undue burden on them. And so we've really educated the industry and said, hey, with this transparency, here is how to leverage that data. That certainly sets us apart.
Yeah.
People talk about collaboration, but actually quantifying that is super, super important. So yeah, I think those are two things. And then the third is just the fact that we ourselves, we work with a lot of different organizations, and that includes a lot of drone professionals. So a lot of you listeners here, you might be interested in getting involved, and we certainly do want to work with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. And real quick, what's the best way to reach out to you guys and to learn more about Raptor Maps?
Yeah, so our website, I'm sure every guest says this,
Yeah.
but we certainly put a lot of effort into that. And we actually specifically, if you are a drone professional, you know, there's a way to indicate that when you, you know, shoot a note to us. So that's the best way to get a hold of us. But, you know, the other thing is we just put out a lot of really high quality content. So we would encourage you to check out the videos, read the guides, and send us your feedback.
Yeah.
You know, we're always continuously improving. We want what's best for the solar industry. You know, everyone who's a listener here, you know, you have a lot of expertise, and we want to hear from you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Nikhil, you and Eddie, I mean, you started this all out by you know, staring at a bunch of potatoes, and now you're working in the solar energy industry. What would be your advice to any aspiring entrepreneurs out there that are considering maybe starting on their own journey within this industry?
Yeah, I would say definitely, you know, pick your niche and stay focused, right? So, you know, recognize that everyone talks about drones as being a really important tool in the toolbox, but what that also implies is you have to be prepared to build all of the infrastructure around that. You know, what does your sales process look like? How are you presenting that to customers? You know, you may think that the actual hardware and technology you're using is the coolest thing ever, and it probably is, but you've got to explain it in a way that's actually going to land with the people that you're creating value for. The second thing I would say is if you're interested in the solar space and you're an entrepreneur, definitely want to hear from you. So that would be my other piece of advice is come talk to us.
That's awesome. Well, Nikhil, it's been a blast getting to talk to you today about the solar industry, just about your journey and all the cool stuff you guys are doing. With that, do you have any closing comments?
Yeah, I just want to say that keep finding your niche. This industry's got a lot to offer. It's easy to look at it and say, okay, you know, we've divvied out the different segments. I think there's a lot more innovation that's still going to happen. And so I would say, yeah, keep your mind open, find a really, really cool idea, grab onto it, own it, and follow it fanatically like we've done in the solar space. And you're either going to be really successful or you're quickly going to find something you're going to switch and find that perfect fit.
Yeah, you might just pivot from potatoes to sunlight.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Nikhil, thank you so much. And thank you to all those listening to another episode of Unmanned Uncovered. This episode was brought to you by Consortic. Consortic specializes in drone services, remote pilot training, and UAS consultancy designed to provide you with safer, more efficient surveys and inspections. Go to consortic.com right now and find a better way with drones. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, share, and review this show. Your support makes all the difference in helping me uncover all there is to know about unmanned systems. That's all for this week. Stay tuned for next week's edition. And until next time, safe flying, everyone.